Today we're going to continue. Today we're going to talk about the business side of things. So how to get your courses out there, how to present them in a way that is appealing to your ideal customers, and also how to kind of navigate this new aspect of your business in a way that is healthy, a way that is ethical, in a way that is effective for you. So we'll start by talking about ethics, which is a topic that hopefully you won't find tedious. I find it really interesting and very useful. It might be a little bit of preaching to the choir at this point. You might agree with me in a lot of these things. It might be old information for you, but we're going to try to discuss it in a way that is relevant to kind of this new journey that you're going on, this new expansion of your skill set, and this new page in your career. And then we'll go into talking about healthy business practices, and we'll get into marketing more specifically. We're going to get into like how to choose a good course title and description. And then there is a little section you may have already noticed in your notebook there, your workbook, on, just creating your course and the questions you should ask yourself and the things you should be thinking about as you start to share it with others. So let's start with this conversation about ethics. I start here because this really impacts a lot of the business practices that we have, or I think that it should. And it's going to impact even how you present your courses, where you present them, how you talk about them, even what you might choose to offer. So I want to start here today just because I think it impacts so much of what we do. And I want you to be thinking about it as we kind of talk about everything else. So kind of the bottom line here in this section is that yoga philosophy is our moral baseline. So you may have your own personal philosophy and ethics. You may have philosophy and ethics and morals that are tied up in your religious practices. But as someone who is operating in the yoga community, in the yoga business world, we really all take yoga philosophy as our moral baseline. It's even included in the Yoga Alliance Code of Ethics and in my the Yoga Therapy Code of Ethics or Scope of Practice. There are specific citations of yoga philosophy or yoga morality. Specifically, we're going to talk more today about the Yoga Sutras and specifically the yamas and niyamas and how these can kind of help to influence us as teachers and as teacher trainers or mentors. And the reason we're going to get into this is because as you become more advanced in your career, living your yoga becomes even more necessary. You really have to have a baseline, have a place where you can check in, have kind of this base that you can come back to and base that you can stand on that will help to guide you, because there will be more and more opportunities for you to do things that are questionable or hurtful to others, and you just have to be more aware. And the more of a strong foundation that you have, the easier that making those decisions is going to be, and the fewer decisions you actually have to make. You're more able to just live in such a way that you are happy with, that you feel satisfied with, and is not harmful to others, and allows you to do your best work. So I find this really important, and I, again, felt the pressure of this so much more as a teacher trainer and a mentor and a school owner than I felt as a regular yoga teacher. So I'm going to kind of go through the yamas and niyamas fairly quickly. This is from my 200-hour program. So if you have done your 200-hour with me, you may have seen something similar to this already. And this is so important to me for all teachers that I included as a necessary part of my basic yoga training. I hope that you have had some evaluation and learning of the yamas and niyamas in your 200-hour as well. But again, we're just going to kind of look at this through the lens of business and through the lens of being more of a mentor and a leader in your community rather than a yoga teacher leader in your community. So thinking about being a leader of teachers as opposed to only a leader of students. So first we have ahimsa, which is, of course, I didn't put the basic definition here, just a moment. Okay, so ahimsa is compassion or non-harming. Ahimsa is one of these words where himsa means like him means to harm, and is like the opposite of. So is a negation when it happens at the beginning of the word. So that's why you very often will see words like ahimsa defined as non-something. So non-harming is the literal translation. I tend to prefer the definition of compassion. I like to say what the thing is rather than what it's not. That's just a personal linguistic preference to me. So my idea, my perspective on ahimsa when it comes to being a trainer and mentor is to serve compassionately and work from a perspective of non-harming. And what I mean by this is to keep in mind your larger compassionate goals, and also keep in mind the impact that what you might do has on your community as a whole. So with a lot of these, I have come to my opinions on them through seeing people not honor them. So I will have maybe a few negative anecdotes as we go through here. That to me is one of the ways that I have really learned how to act is by watching other people, watching the harm that they do, and then learning how to do things differently, do things better. So one of the things that I have seen that is not compassionate when it comes to teacher training and when it comes to continuing education is when people don't keep in mind the impact that their teaching will have. One example of this is maybe teaching people who are teaching people out of their scope of practice. That's really kind of the bottom line. So I've seen some teacher training and some continuing education where there are therapeutic things being taught or Ayurvedic practitioner things being taught to yoga teachers, which is fine if it is taught in such a way like this is background knowledge, this is interesting information, this is something to help you understand what an Ayurvedic practitioner does, or this is something just to give you some depth to your teaching, but this is not something that you are going to be taking into your class and teaching to other students. Where it crosses the line into harm is when a therapeutic technique is taught to someone who is not a trained therapist. One of the things that you learn in any kind of therapeutic training is how to not do harm. And one of the ways we don't do harm is by applying the wrong technique to someone or introducing a technique to someone before they are ready. So when you put therapeutic knowledge in the hands of people who are not equipped to make those kinds of judgments just because they don't have the experience, they end up harming their students because they are given something without the appropriate amount of knowledge or experience. So this is something we need to be aware of whenever we're teaching, and when we want to teach in a compassionate way, is at the outset, you might think like, oh my gosh, this breath work has been so impactful to me. I think I can teach other teachers how to bring this into class. However, that breath work might be really powerful and really triggering for a lot of people. And if you don't know that, and if your teachers that you're teaching don't know that, you could be causing a lot of harm to their students by giving them this technique kind of out of context or without the proper knowledge on how to present it in a way that is appropriate for students. So yeah, I've seen that it's not happening so much in my community anymore, but it was happening a lot for a while, where there were a lot of techniques being introduced as just these like wonderful cure-all techniques. And nothing in yoga is a cure-all. Everything is individual for each individual person. And so for someone to be teaching that to other teachers, I believed was harmful. And it did cause some kind of episodes and triggering and things with some of my students. So that's why I kind of personally, how I know about it and how it impacted me. So thinking about as you go into teaching, how your teaching is going to impact people, if that's going to be harmful, but then also thinking about your business practices. So we're going to get into this with kind of other yamas and niyamas. Compassion is the basis for everything. And this idea of thinking about the impact that you're going to have with your actions is the basis of everything in business. So this idea is going to kind of come with us as we move through everything else. All right, next we have satya, which is truthfulness or integrity. This one is another huge, important one that tends to kind of filter through. So if you remember your yamas and niyamas, all of these first ones are kind of external observances. They're like how you operate in the world and how you treat other people, while the last 5 are more internal. But they all can be kind of applied in different situations. But why I mention that, why I bring that up, is because these first 5 have a lot to do with how you interact with others. Even though there can be quite a bit to say about including them in your treatment of yourself, a lot of these first ones are the ones that are really important for our business practices, because they literally are about how you operate in the world and how you relate to others. So when we live with satya, when we are living our yoga, we practice satya naturally. We live authentically, we speak truth, and we live with integrity, and we act with integrity. This comes again naturally as a result of being compassionate and not being able to harm others. Many lies harm people. And so if you are aware of how lies can harm other people, you just don't say them. But also operating with integrity and honesty. So big aspects of this when it comes to being a mentor and a trainer is you need to obviously teach honestly, like you always do. You need to present yourself honestly. You need to be honest about your credentials, for example. You need to teach in a way that is authentic to you, like we've talked about before. But also you need to operate your business with integrity. You need to live within the law of where you live. You need to live within common ethical business practices that's common in the culture where you live. But you also need to live your dharma. So that's part of living honestly, is living according to your true purpose, staying in your lane in a way, doing what is good and authentic for you is a part of this kind of living and working with integrity. I've seen some people kind of misrepresent themselves in the marketplace as being an expert in something that they're not an expert in. That happens sometimes. It doesn't happen frequently. But where I see dishonesty being more harmful is in maybe people maybe being dishonest about their skills. So maybe not about their knowledge or about their training, but I've had plenty of people tell me that they are like a wonderful expert teacher when they're really not. And like that could be just their opinion. It could just be like overselling themselves. But this is kind of that fine line we need to walk with when you're doing interviewing and writing your resume and all of those things, because of course you want to write your resume as the best version of yourself, but it needs to be an honest representation of yourself. And this is maybe one of my motivations for leading this course, is that people maybe just don't know the skills that they don't have. They don't know what they don't know. So they may be being honest and thinking that they are really excellent as a teacher, when really they just don't have the experience or the knowledge to really make that claim in a good way. But I also see people kind of just giving themselves labels that are kind of aggrandizing, or just, I don't know, part of living with truthfulness and integrity to me is living with humility. And it really kind of rubs me the wrong way when I see people not doing that. It feels very inauthentic and very, I don't know, it just makes it about them instead of making it about what they're teaching, which is very important to me, to make sure that I am representing the teachings and honoring their history and honoring their culture, and not trying to claim that I am like some kind of amazing master of those things. So again, that's probably maybe just like a personal thing. But I see that as dishonest if anyone kind of represents themselves as this great legendary thing. All right, let's move on to asteya. This is generosity or non-stealing. Really basic, don't steal from your students. This can be time or money. Honor the schedule, start on time, end on time, basics. If you say that something is worth 3 continuing education hours, don't offer a 1-hour workshop and give 2 hours of homework. Like, that's not cool. If people are signing up for 3 hours of teaching, then deliver 3 hours of teaching. Don't steal money is maybe obvious, but we'll talk about good financial practices. Something that can happen is that people take prepayment for a course and they have to cancel it, and then they don't have the money to refund because their business has gone bad. Please never, ever, ever take money for a course that you can't deliver. I find it really useful in my business practices to have a separate account for money for prepaid courses. So I either have a ledger and I keep track of like, oh, I need to have at least $5,000 in my bank account for refunds just in case, or I have a separate account that is specifically just for like, these courses haven't happened yet. So just in case I have to cancel them because like, who knows why? Maybe I'm going to get in a car accident and I have to be in the hospital for a month. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So don't steal from your students. And it might, and in many of those cases, it's not malicious. It's purely by accident, purely by bad business practice. But if you took money and then didn't deliver something, that's stealing. And then don't steal from other businesses. Part of the idea of asteya is kind of living with a spirit of abundance, or not living in a spirit of scarcity. When you live with a mindset that there are plenty of yoga practitioners to go around, plenty of students to go around, you won't feel the crush to get as much as you can get, which I see a lot happening, especially in the post-pandemic world. There are a lot of people who are really feeling the crunch because our world really has changed. The demand for yoga teacher training and continuing education has changed. People are wanting different things from their education. So there is a feeling of scarcity a lot with a lot of businesses. And so the temptation is very, very, very high to do unethical things to get as many students as you can. And this really has leached out into teacher training. There are a lot of things that I find morally reprehensible that are happening, that are just my opinion. Like, I just don't think it's honoring of the true nature of yoga to be offering things in this way. I don't think it's honoring of the students or high quality education to offer things in a certain way. That's just my opinion. But then there are also things where people are literally poaching from other people. They are, they'll do, again, this is maybe just kind of morally gross. It's not like illegal in any way. It's just nasty, to like do an ad specifically that says, these people are horrible, don't go to them, do my thing instead. I find that to be morally reprehensible and like a horrible business practice. But that is also maybe not theft. It's just like stealing prospective clients. But what actually is theft is if you like steal contact information from a business, or contact people without their authorization. And again, social media has this really weird like gray area that's happening where you can just reach out to people, through their Facebook Messenger or whatever. And a lot of people are putting like privacy settings on, so you can't just contact them randomly. That is fine, it's whatever, but I would recommend just being really aware of where you're getting your students, and it's try not to like go up to a business and take their client list and then sell something to them. That might seem really obvious to you, but there have been many teachers and schools and businesses who do that. They don't see any problem with that. So please don't do that. The big bottom line with this one is live with an understanding of karma. Understand how your actions ripple out and affect others. So the thing with, client privacy, things like that, like you shouldn't go contacting someone if they didn't ask to be contacted, because that really is a violation of their privacy. It's stealing their sense of safety, and it is harmful. It's not okay to just, randomly reach out to someone, especially through something that I would consider private, like an email. That's not usually, it's not usually great to do something like that. Next, we have brahmacharya. This is moderation. The very basic original understanding was behavior befitting a student. So coming in with proper humility, respecting your teachers, respecting the teachings, all these things. And I touched on this briefly, where I feel like humility is a really big part of satya, of being honest. Yeah, I feel like we all should operate with humility for the teachings, humility for the teachers who have come before us, humility for, the practice as a whole, like honoring this big, vast thing that's bigger than all of us. Like the practice of yoga is almost like this, ethereal entity that we all just get to kind of partake from and be involved in. And having that idea helps me to stay humble and helps me to not, one of the things that this is helpful with is not having so much pressure on myself. One of the reasons I'm so turned off, like I said before, by those like really big self-aggrandizing figures is those are the people who have a really far way to fall. And that just isn't in line with my personality on the one hand, but it also is just, it's just setting you up for a lot of failure to operate in that way. But another kind of wonderful lesson we can learn from the idea of brahmacharya is operating within our means. So again, a wonderful example of how to not be is to really overextend yourself, to offer so many things that you really can't be prepared for many of them, to pack your schedule so tight that you're not energetically or mentally available for what you're offering. That can be really, really harmful to you and your students. So learn how to find balance in your schedule, find balance in your offerings, and learn the kind of schedule and boundaries that you need to be well prepared for things. So for example, whenever I was teaching in a 200-hour training and I would maybe be there for a full Saturday and Sunday teaching 8 hours both days, I knew that I needed to set off a lot of time on Friday to prepare all of my notes ahead of time, make sure that I had everything that I needed activity-wise, and make sure that I was really nice and relaxed and well rested before going in for a long day on Saturday. And then my best practice is to not have anything planned for Saturday night. Sometimes it's unavoidable and I would, maybe go out and do something nice with friends, but I would try to be in early because I knew that I would need to energetically prepare for the following day. And then I also knew that I always would need to take Monday as a day off to rest and recover. So this is just my habit. If I was going to teach 2 big teacher training days in a row, Friday was my day for preparation and Monday was my day for recovery. And then I just did kind of a miniature version of that if I was going to be teaching a continuing education workshop. And I think I have mentioned this before in this course that I really, really, really recommend preparing your notes the day before. First of all, you never know what's going to happen in the morning. So many times I have seen, I think this has happened to me early on, and then I see it happen with lots and lots of other teachers. You don't know what's going to happen in the morning. If you have kids, inevitably some disaster is going to happen the morning that you need to go do training. Your car is going to break down, or like something is going to happen. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll say, oh, I'll totally get to the studio early and I'll be able to prepare my notes beforehand. Great. But then something happens and you're not able to do that. So first of all, there's just that prepare for the unexpected aspect of things. But the second thing is that your brain just helps you out when you sleep. If you prepare all of your notes the night before and you review all of your content the night before, your brain is going to do some wonderful long-term memory and processing stuff while you sleep. So the next day, everything is going to come really naturally to you. It's not like cramming before a test where you maybe have to look really closely at your notes. If you prepare the day before and you feel really solid on things, usually the day that you're presenting, everything is going to feel really ingrained in there because it's in your long-term memory. So it's going to feel easier to present and more natural to present than if you prepared your notes right before you taught. So this is the kind of moderation and scheduling and boundary making that you set for yourself in order to serve your students in the best way. And the humility that comes in here is I had to learn once I was past a certain age that I really can't go out on that Saturday night. My body just cannot prepare, especially if there's going to be any alcohol involved. No way. Maybe I used to be able to do that, but honestly, I've never really been able to nicely recover with one night of sleep, especially if I have something so hugely in need of my energy as teaching a full day of teacher training. So this is one of the, I've learned to be humble with the needs of my own body and not to push it too far and just plan to go home early and go to bed early, both Friday and Saturday. All right, next we have the final yama, which is aparigraha. Aparigraha is non-grasping. This is the idea of acknowledgement of abundance. So this is really, really closely tied into Asteya. You don't need to steal if you are not afraid of lacking. So when you live with an attitude of there's plenty to go around, you're not afraid to share, and you're able to operate within appropriate boundaries. Another aspect of aparigraha is kind of not holding on to what's not yours in an energetic and mental sense. So when you live in a state of yoga, aparigraha comes naturally, and you are able to know what is yours and what isn't. So this to say, if you are unbalanced or not living in a state of yoga, you might be constantly worried that there are clients you're missing out on because you're not offering something to them. When you are living in a state of yoga and you're living with aparigraha, you're I know my niche, I know my people, I know exactly what I want to teach to those people. I don't need to teach to everyone. I need to teach to my people. And that role, that dharma just becomes so clear. You're not afraid of what you're missing out on. Yeah? And then again, another aspect of this is operating within appropriate boundaries. So knowing what's yours and what isn't is really a big kind of, that's the way I summarize it a lot. And again, it's really paired with Asteya, which I talked about a lot. All right. So now we go into the niyamas, and these are more personal observances, but they definitely leach out into our lives. So Saucha is cleanliness, but also the idea of simplicity. So this can be physical cleanliness, cleanliness of your space, organization of your space, but also cleanliness in speech and simplicity in your teaching and in your vision and in your offerings. So yeah, this comes down to everything from like, have an organized schedule, have a task list that you follow, have boundaries that you set for yourself and then honor. For example, it has always served me really well as I've been working for myself to have specific days set aside for specific tasks. For example, today I am teaching this. I prepared my notes ahead of time, like I told you to do before, so I could be thinking about it for a while. My notes were prepared ahead of time. I came into my space and I made it tidy and I made it nice how I like it to be so that I feel comfortable in this space. One of the things with me personally is a lot of clutter is it makes me feel anxious. So I make sure that my space is clean, because if it's not clean, I am constantly anxious about the mess around me when I'm supposed to be focused on what I'm doing. But other aspects this come into is, focus on the task at hand. Set aside time for specific things and find the ways that help you to focus on those things. So I know that things like attention deficit disorder are a real thing. If you have that and it's for real in your life, talk to someone about getting some help and some strategies that are specific to you. Maybe getting some medication that is specific to you that will help with that. But for everyone else, and for most people, creating a workflow that works for you, creating a schedule that works for you, and then setting aside specific time for specific tasks is really, really, really helpful to help you stay focused. And what this benefits, how this benefits your business is that you know when things are going to be done and you move towards your goals in a progressive way. You don't have to do everything in one day. You do it step by step over time. This can be really helpful. Again, everyone has their own workflow, has their own strategies for doing this. I'm not going to get into it too much, except to say that having cleanliness in your workflow is hugely impactful on your business. So applying this idea of Saucha not only to your mind and to your space, but also into like the way that you do your work. The people that I know who are very mentally cluttered are the ones who are the least reliable, the least organized, and very difficult to learn from. So teachers and mentors who are not organized in their thoughts and in the way that they present things are very difficult to learn from. So if you know that you are the kind of person who is kind of scatterbrained and can go all over the place, you need to be very, very good at organization and sticking to the plan, because it's very difficult for people to follow whenever someone is kind of not simple or clean or concise in the way that they present things, whether that be like actual training material or your marketing material, or just how you communicate in general. So I highly encourage you to find ways to simplify and to organize so that you'll be a more effective teacher. Next, we have Santosha. Santosha is the idea of contentment. And I said it in that tone of voice. It's just one of my favorite words. Sometimes I just try to like breathe in Santosha. So Santosha is contentment. It's also gratitude or satisfaction. Again, this is kind of a personal observance. This is something that I find so useful, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed or burned out, or like I'm spinning my wheels, or like I'm not going anywhere, to sit back and recognize what has gone well, what is good in my life, what I am grateful for, the things that I have accomplished, and being proud of those. And one thing that has been really helpful in my life is to be much more vocal about the good things, because it's really easy for me to be vocal about the negative things to my support network. And so I am being very intentional over the last couple of years, really, in expressing the things that I am grateful for, and the things that are going well, and the things that I do find satisfaction in, so that those things are becoming samskaras. They're becoming patterns in my mind and in my speech, more than the negative things. So really a personal observance, but also something that is just going to help you find more job satisfaction and help you to move forward, and know when you've moved forward. It's kind of a big thing. Tapas is all these things: discipline, commitment, zeal. It's also a purifying fire, which is kind of a side note. This is your persistence and your power for right action. So this is what gives you your drive. This is what gives you the strength to act in an appropriate way. So if you are ever facing a ethical dilemma or a business dilemma, or again, you're feeling kind of burned out, you might need to reconnect to this idea of tapas, this idea of kind of, inner strength, passion, and disciplined commitment. I really like. I maybe come across as a very disciplined person. That is so intentional. I am not a very disciplined person naturally. I have to create a lot of those boundaries that I've been telling you about. They help me to stay motivated, because it is very easy for me to wake up and say, no, there's nothing that really needs to be done today. There's a lot of things I want to be done, but nothing really needs to be done. So I guess I'll just find 100 reasons to not do the things I need to do. But whenever I have discipline around, like, this is the 4 hours I've set aside to work on this project. This project isn't going to be completed in 4 hours, but I'm going to work on it for 4 hours. That helps me so much. That boundary for me is so useful, because it helps me to stay passionate and moving towards what I want to accomplish, because it's not something that is always natural for me. I am very driven. I'm not always very disciplined. So this is the way that I kind of connect to my personal drive, is by creating that cleanliness and organization in my workflow, so that I can move towards the things I am passionate about. So I encourage you to, again, find your own way to do that in your life. Find what motivates you, and then use that to drive you towards what you care about. But also, this kind of tapas, the thing that is easy for me to connect to is when I feel really passionate about something being right, or the justice in something. Those things are really natural for me. So I kind of have to regulate that inner spitfire sometimes whenever I'm really upset about something. Sometimes that same passion can drive me towards other things. So like I said, kind of at the beginning, one of the things that really motivates me to do really good work is when I see people doing bad work. So I see other people doing things badly, and I'm like, oh, I can do better. I'm going to do better. And that really motivates me. Personally. Finally, we have Svadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. So Svadhyaya, hugely important for any professional, any leader. This is self-study, but also sacred study. So this is self-evaluation, continued learning, willingness to learn and adapt, all of those things. And then when it comes to, being a yoga teacher, being a yoga mentor, it is also sacred study. So, one view in yoga philosophy is that your higher self, inner self, like, is the divine. It is a manifestation of God that lives within you. And so the more you turn inward, the more you understand the divine. And this is not, selfishness. It's not like self-aggrandizing. It is approaching yourself with humility and saying, like, I am bigger than myself. How can I live up to that potential? Yeah, again, there's a lot of humility that comes in this. I see a lot of people come to a downfall because of Svadhyaya. They don't learn. They don't continue to adapt. They do not have any humility when it comes to evaluating themselves and their flaws and correcting those flaws. It is hard work. There's a reason why this is buried so deep in the yamas and niyamas. You need everything else if you're going to practice good svadhyaya. You need compassion, you need honesty, you need boundaries. Like, it's hard. I'm not going to say that this is like just something that comes naturally and easy if you do yoga every day. Hopefully it will. If you're living in yoga and you're living your other yamas and niyamas, this is something that is not so difficult, but it takes tapas. It takes dedication. It takes perseverance. It takes, a willingness to enter into hard work. Finally, we have Ishvara Pranidhana. This is kind of the idea of surrender, but also the idea of dedication to the divine. Again, humility. This is acknowledgement of something greater than yourself and a willingness to surrender to that and to contribute to that. One idea of the divine that I really like is the idea of collective community or common humanity. This comes into Buddhism quite a bit. I remember Buddha was a yogi. But yeah, acknowledgement of something larger than ourselves. So where this comes into our business is, first of all, remembering Yoga Sangha, remembering the yoga community. Sangha is community. So acknowledgement that we are part of something that is interconnected and greater than ourselves. This is, again, something that I see people not doing. And it's really difficult in a world where you are your brand. We're going to talk about that later. Like, a lot of us are operating as a teacher and like, we are our brand. What we are selling is ourselves as a teacher. It can be really easy to become isolated because you're trying to stand out in a big sea of people offering similar things. But if we really do isolate ourselves and forget about our interconnectedness, that's where a lot of problems come up. People sometimes, they're not aware of karma. They're not aware of how their actions ripple out and affect the entire community. So having this idea of surrender to the greater purpose, surrender to the divine, dedication to something larger than yourself. If you're living in this way, again, you tend to act in a way that is more kind and less harmful, just because you know that you don't operate in a vacuum. What you do affects other people. It affects your students, it affects other teachers, and it affects the yoga community as a whole. Okay, let's talk a little bit about scope of practice. These are just some big bottom line things. First of all, know what you know, and know what you don't know, and be honest about what you don't know. So be aware of what your skill set is, what your knowledge set is, and then don't tell people you know things that you don't know. It's perfectly fine. It's way better to be honest than it is to be dishonest. Again, living with this idea of satya, truthfulness. People will respect you so much more if you are honest about what you don't know than if you lie about what you don't know. Just the bottom line. Don't allow any pressures to force you to act outside your skill set or your boundaries. So there will be lots of things that will come up that will test you. and maybe tempt you to work outside your skill set or boundaries. For instance, what can happen a lot for people who maybe don't know yoga as well is they might ask you to do something that is outside your scope of practice or outside your scope of licensure, and they don't know that it isn't. So you might go to like, so this happened to me before at like a studio or a fitness place where we're going to like a team meeting and everyone's like spitballing ideas. Maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that, maybe we can do this. And someone will come up with an idea just like out of the blue, like maybe we can do this. And it is outside the scope of practice of yoga teachers. It is not something yoga teachers should be learning, or like I was telling you before, like it's a therapeutic practice that in the hands of the wrong people can be really harmful. That kind of thing can happen where someone might just throw an idea at you and they may not even have thought it through. So you don't need to be necessarily confrontational about this, but it is a good idea in that moment to speak up and say like, according to our code of conduct, that's really not something we should be doing. Or no, that's really not my area of expertise, so I'm not really comfortable teaching that thing. Also true when it comes to your own boundaries. So like if the timing of it is wrong, if the pay of it is wrong, if the content is uncomfortable for you, just say no, and be prepared to kind of stand on your own 2 feet with your backbone and say no to things that are outside your scope of practice or outside of your personal comfort zone. But, you know, be willing to grow and expand. Maybe you get an idea from someone and you're like, I don't know about that yet, but I would love to offer that workshop in 6 months or a year to give me time to learn more. Because that is like just barely outside my scope of knowledge right now. But I think if we plan ahead, I'll be able to learn from my mentor or take another training or in some way prepare for that eventually. All right. Finally, live authentically and share your expertise. So again, don't be afraid to niche down. Don't be afraid to find the thing that you're really good at and focus on that. There are so many people who can learn from you in your community and in the world. Yes, you're going to have to choose to not teach some people. That's part of your finding your ideal student. But it's so much better to live authentically and teach what is good for you than it is to try to work outside of that. And that is just straight from the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna comes and talks about dharma, your role and your purpose and your, the thing you're supposed to do with your life. He flat out says, if it is so much better to do your dharma badly than it is to do somebody else's dharma really well. So basically, it's better to live authentically according to your purpose than it is to do something that is not authentic or good to you. And, even if you do it well on the surface. I've tried to do that some before where I offer something that I can teach because people want it. And it is so exhausting and feels not satisfying at all. So I have personal experience with this where like I offered a workshop and like it was successful, but it was like uphill climb the whole way. It was very difficult for me to teach. And like, people received it okay, but I was very unsatisfied by the whole experience. So live authentically. And like, you might have to do some experimentation. Like there are some of those where like, I thought I liked it and then I offered it and I was like, no, not really. So try to teach what is best for you. Yeah, and we're kind of just bringing together some ideas now, talking about continuing education, growth, personal practice, all of these things. So you cannot hold space for others if you're drained. So we've talked about self-care a little bit. Part of ahimsa is having compassion for yourself, but also keeping in mind your greater goal. So again, that kind of Ishvara Pranidhana. If you are not coming forward to teach as your best self, you are causing harm to yourself and others. So this next point, really important. You have to remember your self-care. You have to remember your boundaries. It's what's best for everybody. And those who are parents may be really aware of this, where, you know, if you are feeling balanced and well-fed and hydrated and well-rested, you tend to make better parenting decisions. And you maybe know this just any relationship in your life. If you are feeling balanced and healthy, you have more patience, you have better judgment, you have more clarity, all these things. If you're living in a state of yoga, you're a better person. Whereas if you're feeling drained, you probably have less patience, you have less clarity, you have less wisdom, you're not connected to your intuition, things just don't go as well. So remember to take care of yourself, because it impacts you and your students in ways that you cannot ever predict. And the other thing to be aware of here when it comes to your self-care is the reality of compassion fatigue. It's really important for you to hold boundaries around how much of other people's energy and junk you take on, and how you cleanse yourself of that. So it is, again, more easy as you get into deeper relationships with students to become fatigued from how much compassion you are giving to others. And you probably have experienced this with, you know, the longer you have a regular yoga student, maybe a private client, the more you are connected to them and the more compassion fatigue you might have, the more you might get drained from caring for that person. When you do a teacher training, even a course with people, you get to know them, you get closer to them, you share in their energy and their space for a while, and that will impact you. So yeah, have your support network, have your therapist, have all the things that are going to help you to process that, so that you can continue to show up with an open heart and not feel drained from that. Another big part of this is you have to stay established in a personal practice. You have to be practicing in the way that makes the most sense for you. There are lots of paths of yoga. You can practice yoga every single day on your yoga mat. You can practice yoga every single day on your meditation cushion. You can practice yoga every day by spiritual devotion. You can practice yoga every day by continual growth in knowledge and wisdom. You can practice your yoga every day by living a yogic lifestyle. And you can do a little bit of all of these things if you want. But you cannot teach from a place of wisdom if you do not have the personal experience of personal practice. It is impossible. If you don't have experience in something, your teaching is going to be shallow, it's going to be inauthentic, and you're just going to be repeating things that other people told you. So don't do that. Have your practice, have the things that you care about, be dedicated to yourself, and that's going to come out in your teaching. Finally, I don't know how many times I've had said the word humility in the last little while here. Have humility, be willing to grow. This, again, is a huge downfall of so many teachers that I have seen. They start out strong because when they start out, they're like at the peak of their career. They're the highest they've ever been in their entire career. And so they start teaching from that place. And then 2 or 3 or 5 years later, they haven't done any more training. They haven't done any more growth. They haven't evaluated themselves and learned. And so they're still trying to teach from the same place, and it's stale and it's inauthentic and people aren't interested anymore. It is maybe kind of difficult, maybe kind of sad aspect of business that you do constantly need to be growing and sharing something new. There are wonderful things that you can do repeatedly. So I'm not trying to say that you always have to be like reinventing the wheel, but you also can't just stay stagnant in your practice, stay stagnant as a person, or stay stagnant in your offerings. You have to be willing to grow and adapt, and to change. And again, this is also part of the, like, people can tell when you are not living authentically. They can tell when you're not growing, and they can tell when you're not establishing your yoga practice. It might not be obvious when you're a brand new teacher. It might not be obvious when you're an experienced teacher, but it becomes really obvious when you are trying to mentor teachers or train teachers, because they're all trying to do the same thing too. They're all trying to grow. So if they're coming to you for continuing education and growth, and they see you staying stagnant, then they're not going to respect you as someone who can help them grow. Just the bottom line. All right. Oh, maybe take a little pause here. We're going to talk about healthy business practices next. So if you would like to take a little breather or a little break, now might be a good time to do that before we move on. Okay, so healthy business practices, again, kind of based on the philosophy we've been talking about, but also just on my own experience. So first, I want to talk about good financial habits. As you grow into offering continuing education or becoming a teacher, trainer, or mentor, hopefully your revenue will increase, and you might shift from being a few $100s a month yoga teacher to $1,000 or more a month yoga teacher. And you will probably want to shift things a little bit, either just so that things are more clear for you and your finances, or maybe because you're wanting to establish something that is more like a school, more of an entity that maybe is different from yourself, maybe not. You can, again, like, continue to use your own name. So for the longest time, I continued to just use Lauren Mason Yoga as a continuing education provider. I had an LLC, all these things just underneath that, before I kind of shifted to working for schools and then, having my own school. So establishing a business entity, this is going to be unique to you. Definitely do some research. You might consult a business advisor or just a CPA to help decide what is the best for you based on what kind of income you expect, what the rest of your finances are like, and what things are like in your state or country. So in Texas, you can, which is where I am, is one, like, I'm most knowledgeable about that. That's where I've lived the longest. You can just be a sole proprietor and you don't necessarily need to register anything. If you're going to use a name other than your name, you'll want to file a certificate with the Secretary of State that just kind of lists that you're going to be operating underneath this name that's different than your own. That will allow you to open up bank accounts underneath that name and receive payments underneath that name and just report underneath that name on your taxes. It helps things to be clear, so that you're able to keep your income stream separate. So for a long time, I had like a part-time job with a business where I would get, my taxes taken out, and I would get a W-2 at the end of the year to put on my taxes. And then I would also have my sole proprietor income. And it's just so nice for your organization, for your accountant, or if you're doing your own accounting, to keep all of those things very clear, because it might not be clear in your bank account. So if you're not having a separate bank account, you want to have records where you know where things are coming from. In the United States, when you report your taxes on your business income, you only pay taxes on your business profit. So it's very important to keep very good track of what revenue came in for what business and what expenses you had for what business. So start keeping good records if you aren't already. And you may want to establish a business entity to make that a little bit simpler for yourself. I highly recommend opening a business banking account. Some of them do charge a monthly fee. It's nominal. It can be counted towards your business expenses. The reason why this is so good is that you're going to get some benefits usually for opening a business bank account. And again, it just helps to keep things really clear. You can be an employee of yourself. You don't have to be, you can. You can have your taxes filed for you throughout the year rather than having to pay them just once annually. There are just a lot of benefits to keeping your business revenue and expenses in their own separate place. So I highly recommend that. I've already said keep good records, but seriously, keep good records. Keep track of your mileage, keep track of every single expense. You can use a program that helps you to do that, where you link it to your business account and it just kind of automatically marks things for you, or you can keep your own records in your own way. If you are not good at these things, talk to a CPA and then do everything that they tell you. The best, if you're not good at this at all, if you are very bad about keeping records, you don't understand how the finances work, if you're not good with numbers, find a CPA who will help you to stay on top of it every single month. So there are some people who will do your bookkeeping for you, and they either are totally linked up to your account, so they can just do it all for you, or you send them things at the end of every month. If you are really good at this on your own, then maybe just seek CPA's help to get advice on things, and then, do it all yourself. But please be aware of your money, know where it's coming from, know where it's going, and know that you have to pay taxes on it. This is something that can be the downfall of a lot of small business owners, and especially sole proprietors, is that they forget that the government is going to expect you to pay on your income, that you need to pay all your Social Security taxes and all of those income taxes. And you could be hit with a really big bill if you haven't been saving for that or preparing for that. So I personally, every single time I pay myself for something, I immediately save 20% in a tax savings account. I opened up a kind of high yield savings account, so I'm making like, $100 per year in interest on that account, which I know is not astronomical, but it's also not nothing. I put as much as possible in there. Sometimes I put more than 20%, so that when my tax bills comes around, I have plenty of money to cover my tax bill. And if there's extra, then I'll give myself a nice bonus that sort of acts like a tax refund. But for the most part, I just keep that money in that account. I only pay my taxes out of it. That's the only time I take money out of it. And it is earning me a little bit of interest. Another healthy thing to be aware of in business is good relationships. Again, we are all part of this yoga sangha. We are all part of this interconnected community. It's really, really useful to make connections with like-minded teachers and professionals within the yoga community. Stay in touch with your teachers, stay in touch with your mentors, stay in touch with teachers that you like within your community. Find out what things you have in common, find out what things you have differently, and collaborate, work together, and then offer things that are different on purpose. This can be really great and healthy for the marketplace as a whole. Also maintain connections with people in adjacent industries, especially those that are most closely tied to your ideal clients. So, for instance, maybe you want to offer a lot of yoga that is good for chronic issues. You know that yoga practice in general can be really good for people who have weak backs or weak cores or have limited mobility. So make friends with chiropractors and massage therapists and all people like that in your community, and maybe offer yoga at their office or offer like discounted yoga to their clients. Make relationships with people. And even if you're not offering things like that as a marketing gimmick, if you have a relationship with someone and someone says to them, oh, I'm looking for a good yoga teacher, you're going to be who they think of. And try to make those relationships as authentic and healthy as possible. So you can go to networking events. A lot of those are very superficial. You get like 100 business cards. If you're going to like big community networking events, I've had this experience where like people are there who sell insurance, and people are there who own this business, and people are there who own that business. And like, there's not really ideal connections for me to make there. It's much better for me to go to like a wellness fair or have a booth at a wellness fair and then connect with all the other people who are there. So, doctors' offices and clinics and people like that will be there, but also people like chiropractors and massage therapists and people who I resonate with a little bit more closely, who are more likely to recommend people to me. Those are where I make those connections. And then try to maintain those relationships as much as you can. If someone does come to you and you know that they were sent by someone that you know, send them a quick email, send them a quick note, say thank you so much for sending that client my way. Or, just find a way where you can maintain good connections. So sometimes it's when I am a client at those places. And so, whenever I go for my appointment that I was going to do anyway, I remind them I'm a yoga teacher. I think that you've sent a few people my way. Thank you so much for doing that. I have a workshop coming up next month, etc. And then when it comes to being, a teacher trainer or a mentor, then you might make connections with people who would be interested in doing teacher training, or people who could do your continuing education who aren't necessarily yoga teachers. So they might be interested in doing like a stretching workshop that you do for yoga teachers. Or you could offer things that are specifically like stretching for massage therapists. That could be something that you offer if you're wanting to do that kind of stuff. Then those relationships with people who aren't yoga people become really important. They also might know yoga teachers. That's the other thing, is like find the people who also know yoga teachers. And then they could still network for you for your continuing education things. And finally, live with integrity and live your yoga. Your reputation within your community and your business community is important. If you don't pay your rent on time, if you are a flake when it comes to community events, that gets around. People aren't going to send you clients. People aren't going to trust you if you're not trustworthy, if you're not reliable, if you're not honest. You're not going to do well in your business community. And again, I see so many people who will start out strong and then they compromise their ethics and they don't maintain good business practices and they lose respect, even though they're still a good yoga teacher. People don't respect them in the community. So people stop coming to their stuff because they've heard that that person isn't a good business person. So it happens. Work with integrity, continue to live your yoga, and have good relationships with good people. And try to avoid the drama as much as you can. There are always going to be people who are in their 60s and still acting like they're in high school with the drama. And if you live with integrity, even when rumors go around about you, people aren't going to believe them because they know you're not the kind of person who would do whatever someone is trying to create drama around. And you wouldn't think that it happens, but it does. It's exhausting and obnoxious to me, but it does happen. And the only way I have found to avoid it is to not engage with it. All right, now let's talk a little bit about industry norms and boundaries within business. So always, first and foremost, make sure that you are familiar with local, state, and federal laws in your area. You would be amazed how many people don't know the law and will work outside of it. And also, especially in my state of Texas, there are gray areas. There are ways in which yoga people and sole proprietors can do weird stuff that's not really illegal, but it is weird. So there are sometimes these like norms within the yoga industry or within the fitness industry that are like probably not legal when they come under scrutiny, but everyone gets away with it because everyone's contractors or because they're small enough that no one notices, and then it like becomes the norm. Let's try not to feed into that if we can. So know your laws, And if something that is happening in your community or something that is offered to you sounds like it might be illegal, definitely do some research, maybe consult an attorney. Review contracts thoroughly. You should have a contract for pretty much everything that you do with another person. It should be very clear. It should be time-based. It should be very thorough. It should cover who's doing what and who's responsible for what and when it's going to happen and how we're going to get paid and when. All of those things should be covered in a contract. And even if you've worked with someone a lot, things can happen over the course of a relationship. Again, like I said, I have seen so many teachers who will start out strong and start out really ethical, and then things get tough or things change and they start to compromise, and they compromise little by little by little. And then like 3 years down the line, they're doing things that are just obnoxious and borderline illegal. And they're getting away with it because people are like, oh, well, I trusted them 5 years ago. You got to learn to adapt and evaluate and like always be on your toes. Yeah, just, you know, it's have those good relationships, but also be aware that people change. And it's really like contracts are such a wonderful boundary. They can feel very cold. They can feel very like not yogic. But anyone who is like, we don't need a contract, we're good friends, red flag. Have a contract. At the very least, what it does is that it has a basis of conversation for you. So you can have a contract that you have that is maybe very basic, that you start with everybody, and you just kind of write in the details for every single job that you do. And so this becomes a wonderful conversation. You sit down with whoever you're working with and say, okay, how do you feel about how we're presenting this? Do you think this is in line with your values and your community? Are you going to do the marketing or am I? When is it going to be done by? And if you don't do it, then what are the consequences? This is something that I've had to learn as well. Working in business is very much like doing a group project in school. So if you haven't done a lot of working with people in the business world, it is so like doing a school project where you might have 4 people working together and one person is the person who gets stuff done and 3 people are the people who are going to sit by and do nothing until the one person does the work. Happens all the time. So it is really important in a contract for you to say, you're going to do this by this date, and you're going to get compensated this amount for doing all of these things by this date. If you don't do these things by this date, the compensation will go to me or to whoever will do it. Or like, if these things aren't done by this date, we're canceling. These boundaries can be really, really, really useful. And again, you have to stick to those boundaries, which can be really painful in the moment, but so much better for you in the long run. I have seen so many people who offer their first like joint workshop or joint retreat together, going into it with a person who is a wonderful yoga teacher. And partway through, they realize this person is horribly disorganized. This person is dishonest. This person is not doing what they said they were going to do, or they didn't bring the clients that they said they were going to bring. So here I am, where I said I would split this 50-50 with people, but I'm bringing in all of the clients. I'm doing all of the work. And here's this person over here who's going to make 50% off of this workshop, and they haven't done any of the things they said they were going to do. Granted, sometimes it's situational, sometimes things happen, sometimes this people's clients are just really that much more interested in this person's clients. However, I have seen this happen enough times that I know that having a contract and having those boundaries and having those things really clearly lined out, especially the first time you work with someone, can really, 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 really save your butt. So have a contract, review it thoroughly. Don't just accept a studio's contract at face value and assume that because a lot of teachers have done this with them before, that they know what they're doing and it's good. So this is kind of the next point. Don't take anything at face value. Know the laws, know your boundaries, and do research if something sounds yucky to you. So if it seems like a studio is going to be taking more than you want to give them, if it seems like the requirements of something are more than you are prepared to do, look at those things, think about them, and yeah, especially if it seems legally iffy. If it seems like it's crossing an ethical boundary or a legal boundary, research that, look into it, research, legally, but also like talk to your mentors, get advice on things. Usually if it feels weird, if there probably is something weird about it, it might just be that like you're getting the raw end of the deal because they're a much bigger entity than you. So this does happen sometimes where like maybe you're a small teacher, they're a really big studio, so they're getting the lion's share of things, but they're also doing the lion's share of like bringing the clients in. And so it might feel kind of like, I'm really sacrificing, like I'm really not getting as much as I could get if I did this on my own. Maybe you're probably not going to get as many clients on your own either. So walk that line, understand what you're getting out of it, what they're getting out of it, all that stuff. And but also if it feels wrong, then talk to some mentors about this. One of the things that this brings to mind that I see a lot is the compensation split. So yeah, that comes up a lot, and that really is the thing I think I get the most questions about. Like, does this seem fair to you that they're going to do these and get this much, and I'm going to do these things and get this much? Does that seem fair? And absolutely talk to your mentors. Send it to me if you want, great. But also do that evaluation for yourself. Sit down and say, like, how many hours am I putting into this? How many hours are they putting into this? What experience and history am I bringing to the table? What experience and history are they bringing to the table? And what is that worth? The other things you might want to kind of question or any kind of ideas around, yeah, compensation is a big one. Where the clients are coming from. So if you feel like there's some like unhealthy or unethical client poaching going on, if you feel like the cancellation or refund policy is unethical, like look at those things. Like I said, there are some companies who will like not have a good refund policy that includes, if this workshop is canceled, you get a full refund. They might not have anything in there like that. So make sure that you're working with people that you trust and that you have a nice contract that is legal and covers everything you want it to cover. And then finally, know your worth and your needs, and always be willing to turn down an opportunity that isn't a good fit. Again, I have done so many things where the money looked good or the prospect of it looked good, or I was sold this like idea of what things could be or what the studio had to offer, what it could mean for me. And like, I didn't like the vibe at the studio. I didn't really love the terms of the contract. I didn't really love what they wanted me to teach or how they wanted me to teach it, but I did it anyway because I like needed the money and I needed the exposure and I just wanted to be teaching. I just wanted to be doing my thing, and I do it and it's unsatisfying. Often it's unsatisfying, the compensation. Big pie in the sky promises made about who they can bring in and how many numbers there's going to be and my huge percentage of what I'm going to get. Or it's just unsatisfying because it's not my ideal client. It's not my ideal situation. The people who are coming are not people who really relate to me or people who really want to learn from me. So if you're at the outset of something and it's feeling like it's not a good fit, be willing to try new things, but also know who you are and know your boundaries, know what you need, know what you don't need, and just be willing to say no if it's not going to be good. Okay, so as a kind of conclusion to this section, what I would like you to do is look at the scenarios that are in your workbook and write some thoughts on how you would approach the issue. So I want you to do all these things. So this is going to be maybe a longish paragraph or a couple of paragraphs. So first, you're going to read through the scenarios and pick the one that is most interesting to you. And then expand slightly on that scenario. So it's very basic. It's like a one-line thing. Write about how that might manifest in your community, or imagine some specifics of that situation. So you might even imagine that this is happening with people that you know. And think about their personalities within it. That can be a helpful kind of thought experiment. And then kind of your general opinion on the situation. And then write about what you can do to address the situation while it's going on. So say that this happened with like out of the blue, totally unexpected. What would you do while it was happening? And then what you might do afterwards to resolve the issue. And what you might do in the future to avoid a similar situation. And make sure through all of this that you're grounding your response in yoga philosophy or in yoga values. So see how you can tie that in. That hopefully will give you a nice like guidepost. So this is not like a I want you to write an essay on the yamas and niyamas. More, I want you to make sure that that is the backbone of how you're thinking about this, rather than having to rely on, you know, a wealth of other knowledge. You of course can use anything from your personal life that you find useful. And I'm going to talk with you about this. So we'll in one of our private sessions, well, I'll read what you wrote and I'll just, you know, respond to it via email if that's how we're doing things, or if we have a one-on-one session planned, then we'll talk about it within our session. These are things I love talking about. You can respond to more than one if a lot of these are really interesting to you or you want to talk about a lot of them. These are the kinds of, it really is helpful to talk through a lot of these things and think about them from different angles, because they are nuanced. There is opinion. There are sometimes gray areas or different ways of looking at things. So do a little bit of self-inquiry, and then we'll have some discussion on it when you're done. So this is kind of the end of this section. So again, if you'd like to maybe pause and do this now, you can, or just know that this is your assignment for this section, and you can come back to this when we're done with the rest. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to totally, you know, change gears now, but of course, still working from the foundation of everything we've talked about so far. So we're going to talk about sharing your courses, the logistics of that, and marketing. So first, let's talk about registering as a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider and sharing your courses. And for this, I'm just going to go to your workbook. I just like how I laid it out on here. I think it's nice and clear. So we're going to go there. So you can just use it on paper. I'm just going to share it on the screen so I can follow along. Okay, so here we go. So registering as a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider and adding courses. So you can register as a continuing education provider if you're an ERYT. So you need your 200-hour plus 1,000 hours of experience and 2 years of experience after your training. So you graduate from your 200, you have 2 years of experience, 1,000 hours of teaching, then you can register as a continuing education provider. Side note, you can still offer continuing education courses if you're not there yet. You just can't register with Yoga Alliance as a yata. For more information, you can follow this URL, overview for continuing education providers. So once you meet those requirements, to add that designation, you just go in there and add it and pay $20 and set up your profile. It's very, very simple. And then adding courses is also simple. So once you have your dashboard, you click manage courses, you add a course name, you choose the educational categories, and then you add a description, you add a schedule, you're done. So you do have to offer a course on a specific time. This becomes kind of a little difficult if you're offering virtual courses and you want to offer them just like someone can take them anytime that they want to. What you end up having to do is just you go in and add new dates. And sometimes what I have done in the past is I just offer a date like the first day of every month or the last day of every month, and everybody who does the course, they get their credit on the last day of the month. So they finish it on June 10th, they get a completion date of June 30th. Or if it's few enough people that are doing it, I just go and I add a specific date just for that person. So they bought the course, they finished the course, and I just go in and say like, yes, I offered the course on this day. Again, for me personally, all of my virtual courses are offered on a like one-on-one personal basis. I don't offer any courses where you just automatically get continuing education credit. And Yoga Alliance really frowns on that, which is why they make you offer a scheduled date for your course. And then you're done. So it's really very, very easy. Once you meet the requirements, you just go in there and create your dashboard. It's all like, you just follow along there. They spell it out for you really easily. And so we're going to talk about how to do all of these things, because the difficult part of this is knowing your educational categories, adding your description, adding your title, all those things. All of those things, excuse me. So the more difficult part of this is like knowing what to write. So we're going to go on that here in a little bit. So back here, let's talk about successful course descriptions and titles. So first and foremost, you have to know who you're talking to. This will help you to set your tone. It will help you with your word choice. It will help you with everything. If you can imagine who you're talking to, you know how to talk to them. So what are you sharing and who needs it are your big questions. Understand your ideal client, how to talk to them, how to reach them, and what about you and your course that they're going to find appealing. So when you're writing a description and a title, you really need to know who you're talking to, because you need to know what they're going to find interesting. You also need to know where they're going to read it. So if you're registering with Yoga Alliance is one place that they're going to read it. And the type of person who is registered with Yoga Alliance and looks there for their courses is a different kind of teacher than maybe someone who is looking elsewhere. So just know a little bit about who you're selling to so that you know how to talk to them. All right, here's what you should include in your descriptions. Tell people what to expect. So like, what are they going to learn? What is the content of the course? What's it going to be about? Appeal to the needs that those people have and how you're going to offer solutions. So very frequently, this is going to be like, hey, do you have students in your class who want this thing you don't know how to teach? I can teach you how to teach it. Or, you know, is this thing lacking from your teaching? Are you not reaching people for this reason? I'm going to help you do that. Or the problem can be like, do you just not know enough about this thing? Do you just want to expand your knowledge in a particular direction? I can help you do that. It's really, really helpful to describe an experience. So describe a benefit they're going to get. Describe how the day is going to go. Describe what is going to be offered and how. So people can start to imagine themselves in that situation. You want them to be imagining what learning from you is like. And then once they visualize themselves there, they're really going to want to do it. So if you can be evocative and descriptive in your description and really describe an experience or describe a really impactful result, people are going to put themselves in that situation and want to learn from you. Include who is teaching it and what they have to offer. This one, oh my gosh, you would not believe how many continuing education workshops show up in my feed and I don't know who's teaching it. And like me personally, like, yeah, you can tell me that this workshop is amazing, but like, I need to know who's teaching it because I need to know if I respect them or not. That is part of, you know, learning styles. We talked about a long time ago, where some people just have really specific needs in their educational experience. Some people have a need to know that the experience of the training is really pleasant and enjoyable. Some people have the need that they're going to get something practical out of the workshop. And I'm a practical person, but I also need to know that the person I'm learning from is organized and knows what they're talking about. Because I've gone to so many continuing education and training experiences where the person doesn't, that now I'm really picky. And I'm not going to pay money to go and learn from someone who's not good. And I seriously, over the last couple of years, I see so many people offering continuing education workshops, and they have this beautiful description about all the things that they're promising, and they don't say who the teacher is. So I don't know if what they're saying is true, because there are some teachers who can write really good descriptions and not follow through. And I know that because I've been to their workshops already. So I'm not going to go to a workshop unless I know who's teaching it. So please describe yourself and put yourself in the workshop description. If you're offering this through Yoga Alliance, you obviously will have your profile that people can read. But I would just go ahead and put your name in the description in general, because you don't know that people are going to read your profile. They probably will, because that's how they found you to begin with, but people can also just search for workshops. So tell who's teaching the workshop, please, and why they're an expert in what they're doing or what they have to offer in that experience. You don't have to call yourself an expert if you don't think that you are, but you do have something to offer. So tell people what you have to offer personally. Why should they take this workshop from you? Not just like, why are you good at it, but like, why this workshop? Why now? Why you? All right, titles. This is such a concise slide, and that's one of my points, like concise. Title should be eye-catching and evocative. So, you know, say pretty upfront what the workshop's about, or be really upfront about what it has to offer. So I tend to be pretty blunt about what the workshop is about right there in the title. I have done workshop descriptions in the past where it's like the result or the effect or the benefit is right there in the title. And then there might be like a subtitle or something that tells you what it is. But you want to be careful with that because it needs to be concise. Think about email subjects, think about event titles, think about your graphics. There are all kinds of places where too many words are going to really mess you up because they're going to get left off of stuff. So at least the first part of your title needs to be clear and concise and tell everything you want to tell. And then the second part might be a little more descriptive. So I guess I could use the example of this course. So I kind of evolved the title of this course from, you know, I used to call it becoming a teacher trainer, which it had the idea of like progress and growth that I was going for. But I also just didn't really like having an ing in the title. There was something weird about that. It wasn't really like action oriented, I guess. And it's just a long word to have in a title, becoming. Even though that does evoke something. So like I liked it at the time. But I moved to teacher to mentor the art, et cetera, because I wanted that teacher to mentor. I wanted that transformation to be the first thing that you see. So what I'm trying to evoke in the title is that like you are going to transform from teacher to mentor, and that's what this course will do for you. And then the description and the rest of the title is all like elaborating on how I'm going to do that or exactly what that means. Anyway, I think it's effective. You probably think it's effective because it got you here, maybe. But yeah, try to be as concise as possible. Don't like be ridiculous about it, and be clear. One downfall that you can do is trying to make it like too Sanskrit-y, too yogic, too fluffy, or like just too metaphorical. And there are some things like there are some marketing strategies where like make it a little bit weird so people will click on the description, like it's going to draw people in, but it does have to draw people in, not be off-putting. So just, you know, walk that line carefully. Visual marketing. So this is like your graphics and such that are going to go with your workshop. The first thing to think about is visual branding. So if you have your own brand, are you going to use that in your visual marketing, or are you going to use the visual marketing of the location or the host? And how you decide this is really based on who has the biggest audience for what you have to offer. So if I am going to teach a workshop somewhere where I am really hoping that a lot of the clients of the place are going to come and take it, then I'm probably going to try to use their branding and their marketing platforms more than my own. And as a side note, I'm probably going to pay them more to do that than I would if I was using my own. So, and I'm going to try to get them to do it for me. So if they're using their branding and they're getting more money for it, and it's all their clients who are going to come, then hopefully they're making more money off of it. Same thing for me. If it's all my branding and my clients and my people who are coming, then I'm hoping that I'm getting the lion's share of the money because I'm doing the lion's share of the work, right? So you kind of, when you're thinking about where you're hosting things, you're thinking about all the things involved in this, but the visual marketing becomes a pretty big piece of it. So you'll either choose to do yours or theirs, or find a way to blend it. Blending, very difficult, can be done. Sometimes all you do is you come up with something that's sort of like visually neutral and you put your logos on them. Or you come up with a way to kind of include elements of both of your brands in there. And you really will want someone who's good to collaborate with, or someone who has a really good like graphic designer that they work with that you can collaborate with. A lot of people will have their own process for this. A lot of hosts will have their own process, what they prefer. This is one of those things where you need to do some negotiation based on what you're needing and what you're wanting out of things. So sometimes people will come through and be like, we do it in this way, you're presenting with us. So like we're hiring you to teach something for us. You're basically contracting with them. And so, yeah, it's all their marketing. They're going to write the description, yada, yada, yada. But sometimes you're going to say like, I have a great thing to offer. I just need a place to offer it. Then you're probably going to be using more of your stuff offered in their way. And they might just have you use their colors or have you use their fonts or something like that so that it can kind of blend in more with what they do. A lot of big studios will have like their own template, their own way of doing things, and they tell you we need a title and we need a description and a picture, and we will edit it the way that we want to present it in our way. So you may not have to do a lot of this, but if you do it on your own, think about your own visual branding. If you haven't done your own work on creating your own brand, I would start doing that now so that you know visually what represents you, and people can start to be familiar with that. So it's really useful, especially in the world that we live in where there's a lot of digital marketing, that you have some imagery that people start to relate to you. And you can include that in everything that you offer. All right, when you offer a specific workshop and you're making a graphic or a flyer or something for it, we need to balance eye-catching but succinct. So not too busy, not too many words, all of those things. And also balancing images that match, like images and fonts, all the visual elements that match the experience people are going to have. So maybe choosing softer visuals or more like swirly fonts for a softer experience, or, you know, using effects like blurring things or making things kind of transparent to evoke kind of ideas of softness, and using more like sharp lines and bold colors for things that are more, you know, strength or business based maybe. So again, I'm not doing like a whole marketing workshop here. That's not my purpose. There are lots of nice courses out there that will teach you those things. But just thinking about this whenever you go into making your visual materials, is to think about how you're going to evoke the experience people are going to have visually. Yeah, and one mistake people can make is making it too garish. So making it too crowded, or making, you know, things that are maybe just cheap looking. I mean, you know, you have your own brand. You do you. Maybe you want things to be like funny and colorful and bright, and like that's you. That's great. But if you want it to have a professional air to it, then you want to use more like mature business-like things in your visual marketing. I also see a lot of people just not using good contrast or not using legible fonts. This is also the thing with titles, is like it needs to be eye-catching. It needs to be something that people don't just glaze over. And if I cannot immediately tell what something is advertising, I just move on a lot of the time. It is not interesting to me to sit and like dig through something and be like, I wonder what that's about. But I've seen lots of flyers that have like illegible font, or the font is too dark compared to the background. I think people get to this thing where they get like they get too artistic with stuff. You have to consider the size at which people are going to see things. So if you're doing something for Instagram or Facebook, it's really likely someone's going to be looking at it on their phone. So they might be looking at it this close, but it's going to be that big. So sometimes you're working on your computer and it's this big and like everything is really clear, but then you scale it down and it's not. So experiment with this when you're working in whatever program you're using, and make it smaller on your screen so you can tell if from a distance at a small size if it's effective. Because it's the same thing with a flyer. A flyer on your computer screen, and right when you like look at it right here in front of you, it might be all very clear, but for the most part, it needs to catch someone's eye from across the room. You're putting it up in the bathroom, or you're putting it up on the bulletin board, or putting it up on the announcements board, and it's across the studio from where someone is. It needs to draw them over there. It needs to not just be like something that blends into the background. So one that I saw recently was very dark, and then it had a very light, thin font that was not in contrast to the background. And I couldn't even tell that it was a flyer. I thought it was like a weird picture. Like I thought it was art or something. It was a flyer for an event, and I couldn't even tell they were selling something. And like, I only got up close to it because I was walking by it. And as I was walking by it, I was like, oh, that's a bad flyer. So it needs to be clear from like a middle distance and also clear up close. And one of the wonderful inventions this day and age is a QR code for a flyer. It means that you can make your flyer very clean, very concise, just put a couple of things on there and then do a QR code that says like, follow here for more information. And everybody has their phone with them. They just follow it and they can like go straight to your website where they can register for the thing. Awesome. You used to have to like put your website on there and hope that people would sit there and type in your website. Maddening. All right, let's look at the course creation workbook and some description examples. I think this will help us more than me kind of talking about theory. We'll kind of look at some and see if we can work from there. So. So I'm going back to your workbook here, and this little like worksheet thing that I created for you. So this is several pages. You might, you know, print it out every single time you need to use it, make a copy, or just go through this in your own notebook. So we're going to work through just briefly, description, marketing materials, sharing the course. These are the big things we're going to think about. And then there's kind of work sections and questions for each of those steps. So whenever you're working on your marketing, you're going to start with your basic course description. And then you're going to make sure that you have written out your learning objectives. So the way that I laid this out is really the way that I work. Sometimes I will get a course description and a title together really early and just get that basic description ready. And maybe I even post it just so I can like get things started. And then I'll kind of expand on it later. You do have to be careful with that because there's always the risk that someone's going to see your crappy description and not be interested and then not pay attention in the future. So be careful with this. The only time that I did that and I thought that it was okay is whenever I had a school and we were offering like tons of workshops all the time. And I just wanted to get stuff on the calendar and get it so that we could start working on the marketing of it. And I would do them like a year in advance. And so I would be going through and writing like 15 descriptions at once. So I didn't do this in-depth work on them until it was maybe 3 months out or 6 months out. We were a little bit closer and actually like aggressively marketing it. So, but for yourself, you might kind of do this before you're ever posting anything. That's what I highly recommend. So basic course description, you're going to write that there or write it in your own notebook. And then talk about your learning objectives. What content is going to be covered? And remember, we talked about learning objectives last time. You're going to be very clear about students are going to learn this. So you don't have to be writing this in descriptive language. This can just literally be like, what are they going to learn? And then experiences. What are people going to get out of this emotionally or spiritually? Now, if you're like me, you might be like, they're going to get the satisfaction of knowing new stuff, which is true, an emotional experience. But if you think about a need that someone might have, like insecurity around a certain topic, they're going to experience security. They're going to experience a sense of safety. They're going to experience a sense of confidence. So dig a little deeper if you're kind of like pragmatist like me, and start thinking about like, what is someone going to get out of learning this? What are they going to get out of the experience of just being there? Because some workshops we've talked about, like it might just be about being there. It might just be about connecting with a teacher or going in depth into a topic that they love. So you want to cover both, because if it is continuing education, then you do need to have learning objectives. You do need to have things that they're learning, but you also need to put like why it's important and why they're going to have a good time, why they're going to feel the way they feel afterwards. And tied up into this is what needs are going to be met. So is it a need for knowledge? Is it a need for some kind of emotional experience? All those things. And then what makes you the best teacher to offer this topic right now? So thinking about your knowledge and expertise, but also like why the timing of this is so perfect. So there are some things that are just like, everybody needs to know this all the time. But one of the things we're going to be talking about is it's December right now. And one of the students who is taking this course right now is going to be offering a workshop in January that is specifically for teaching beginners. The reason that it is timely is because a lot of people start yoga in January. So a lot of people are coming in as beginners in January. So it's a great time, we thought, for teachers to maybe want to learn a little bit more about teaching beginners. Or they're going to be having beginners coming into their class those first couple weeks of January, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I thought I was prepared for this, but like I'm really struggling to teach these new people and how to integrate them into my class. And so they're going to be feeling this need of like, I need to know more about supporting beginners. And so here comes this workshop right at the right time, taught by a teacher who knows a lot about that because they've been teaching beginners for like their entire career. So they're really, really good at it. So we're going to make sure that in their description, which we're going to work on together here in a minute, that they are conveying that. All right, and then also, what imagery or metaphor can help you convey the impact of this course? It might be subtle, it might be overt. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we look at some real descriptions. It might be tied up into the needs of the students. So this is where I often think about one of the things that why it's going to be appealing to yoga teachers is because they want to make an impact on their students. So one of the things I will sometimes bring in is trying to evoke how this is going to help them be a better teacher and how it's going to have a positive impact on their students. So they start imagining having that effect on their students, and they want to learn from me because they want to have that effect. And I've hopefully in the description conveyed that, like, they can't do that yet. They can't do that yet, but I'm going to, after this workshop, tell them how they can do that. And then the last point here on this page is the venue or other key details about timing. So you might need to put something very clear about the setting in your description. You may not, but you may need to be very specific about, like, this is happening in this space, which is equipped in this way, or this is happening in this location, which makes it perfect for this reason. So for instance, you're offering it in a really spacious, beautiful place because it's, you know, going to help with like this idea of expansion. And so like this can happen. That sound is very woo-woo as it came out of my mouth, but I took a continuing education like weekend workshop that was at this beautiful location that had vaulted ceilings and chandeliers, and it was big bright windows, and it was like a breath workshop. And I loved the teacher, I loved the content, but also one of the things I was so looking forward to was being in that room for like 18 hours. I was like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be so nice to like breathe together with 50 people in this room. So like the venue played a key part in me like deciding to do that workshop because it sounded just so amazing to have that particular experience in that place. All right, so then once you've thought about all these things, you're going to write your final description. Again, there might not be enough space for you to handwrite it right here. You might do it on a separate page. And then you're going to write the details of the day and the time. And this may impact your description. You may put that in there, especially if it's like this is an intimate evening workshop, or this is an invigorating morning workshop. That might affect your description. You might want to put that in there. Okay, so then once you've had your marketing materials, you know, I didn't really put anything about the title in here. You may arrive at the title after writing the description. So that's something to think about, is that you may start with the title, you may start with the idea and come to the title later. So you might, you know, we need to put in here the title. Okay, so marketing materials. This is flyers, Instagram posts, events, all that stuff. So first question, how can you display this course in a way that fits in with your branding? So what's it visually going to look like? Where are you going to put it? Ideal client for this course. Describe exactly who is taking this course. And you might even, what's really helpful for me is to think about a single person. So you might say like, all yoga teachers. No, all yoga teachers is not your ideal client. Your ideal client is yoga teachers who need this, yoga teachers who have this, yoga teachers who don't have this, yoga teachers who blank. Needs to be very specific. Because that's going to help you know where to put stuff. Advertising to 20-something yoga teachers who just finished their first yoga teacher training is very different than marketing to veteran yoga teachers 35 and above. Where you talk to them and how you talk to them, vastly different. If you're trying to get very specific yoga teachers of all age categories, you're going to have to talk to them in different places. So your marketing plan is going to be vast. How can you make this course stand out? With the visuals, with the description, placement, anyway. Graphics and materials needed. So once you know where you're going to put it and how you're going to present it, that will help you know what you need to create. So you may use the same color palette and words and graphics and everything, and you need to have an Instagram post, a Facebook post, and a flyer that you post in person. But hopefully you can create all those things rather easily once you've decided on your parameters and exactly what you want to show and say. You may also need to do website stuff. So that's another thing that's on your list is you may need to do like social media, in-person media, and website. And again, if you're working with a school or you're working with a studio, they may do a lot of that for you. They may just ask you to provide some elements so that they can post it. All right, and then your marketing timeline. I kind of touched on this a little bit. It depends on your market and what they need and what you can expect from them. In my particular market right now, it drives me a little bit nuts as a planner because people don't want to sign up for things very far in advance at all. People sign up for even really major workshops and courses like less than 2 weeks in advance. But that doesn't mean that I can always necessarily shorten my marketing timeline. I usually would want to, again, it depends on your exposure and what people can expect from you. There are some times where I can offer a workshop next month. And all I have to do is like put it out that I'm offering it next month and people will arrange and get there. But more often I have people who they have really busy lives. And if they need to come to an in-person workshop, they need to know about it at least a couple months in advance because they need to coordinate it with like their kids' soccer schedules or, you know, their spouse's work schedule or something like that. So I personally would recommend not doing anything less than a month in advance. Even if people aren't going to sign up for it, I would have it being marketed and promoted at least a month in advance. And the bigger it is, the more months you want to add. So if it's like a 1-day workshop, you probably don't need that much time. If it's like a 3-day workshop or like a, you know, multiple weekend course, you need a lot of time to market that so people can prepare for it and plan for it and budget for it. So also the bigger the price point, the more lead time you need to find all your clients. Right, now sharing your course. If you're going to do it on Yoga Alliance or with another organization where you're wanting people to get CEU credit, then right here, what your educational categories are or what the requirements might be for posting it there. So think about everything you need to get done logistically to share it with a professional organization. And then also, so what placement are you going to use? So we talked about that a little bit previously, so you probably already know all of this, but just write down specifically where are you going to put ads, where are you going to put visuals and descriptions. And then working with the venue. How are you going to advertise in collaboration? Who's going to do what? And then what do you need to do to make sure the marketing is done effectively? Do you need to provide graphics to them? Do they need to provide graphics to you? Do you provide your description to them? Do they tell you what the description is? All those things need to be discussed along with the timeline. And then how is the workshop going to fit into the venue's plan and marketing? So sometimes you are totally tied by the marketing plan of the venue. So if they put out a monthly newsletter, you better make sure that yours is in the like 2 months before and the month before your workshop. Because if people like maybe they're going to miss the month before one. So see if you can get it in their newsletter for at least 2 or like maybe 3 months even in advance. And again, further out if it's a bigger thing. But also if you're going to be doing something like that, consider with the venue how you're going to make it fresh, because if people just see the same graphic and the same description in every single email, they're going to stop paying attention to it. And then exactly what you're responsible for. how you're going to deliver it, what you need to deliver, all that stuff. And then the final piece here that hopefully you've been thinking about throughout is honoring your ethics and your scope of practice. So make sure that you're honoring social media and community guidelines, legalities about sharing, but also just ethical things. Like I mentioned before, like don't be that nasty person who is like, don't go to those people, they're terrible, come over to me. Rude. There are better ways to market. You can say all of those things just by saying how great you are. You don't need to be like trash mouthing other people. You can just say like, we offer this amazing thing. I offer this in this unique way. That's why you should take it. You don't have to say like, I offer it in this way and they don't. Yeah, not cool. But also honoring guidelines. So it's really common, like especially on Facebook now, to do things in groups. Honor the guidelines of the group. Don't be going in there and like not honoring the group rules because you don't think that they apply to you or they think that the rules are stupid. You're gonna get kicked out of the group, or yeah, it's just not nice. Just don't do it. Yeah, honor good social media and community guidelines. Only contact students with permission. Again, don't go, this can be fuzzy. If you have access to a client list and you're used to being able to reach out to people for specific offerings, but now you're reaching out to them for a different offering. So, for example, especially if it's not at that venue. So what I've seen happen is like people have access to a client list at a studio, and then they email those people without permission about something they're offering at a different studio. And their justification for it is, well, this studio doesn't offer it. So it's okay that I'm advertising for another studio because they don't offer what I'm offering. No, that's stealing. And the students that happened to, they feel like their privacy has been violated because it has. So don't do that. And even sometimes if it's within the same community, don't go like overwhelming and spamming people with something that they're not interested in. So like it's not a good practice to, well, you know, it's not necessarily unethical, it's just dumb. If you send a lot of emails to clients that are about things that they're not interested in, they're going to unsubscribe from your emails and then they're not going to get anything about anything. So don't send them a bunch of stuff that's not relevant to them, because if they get all these emails that aren't relevant to them, they're going to say, this studio doesn't offer things that are relevant to me, so I'm just going to unsubscribe and not come back ever again. So be careful with that. And then always accurately represent your content and your qualifications. One way we need to be careful about this is with the rise of AI assisted writing. So I'm going to show you a ChatGPT rewrite of one of these descriptions, and we'll see if it's honest or if it makes up a bunch of crap that's not true, because that happens a lot. You put something in the AI and it just writes things that are beautiful, but it's not concerned about what's true because it doesn't care. It's up to you to make sure that you're writing things that are accurate. So yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, so these are some sample workshop descriptions. So this is one that is a final description that I think is pretty good. This is one that I've used that has attracted people and been successful. So that's teaching prenatal yoga with me. So if you are a teacher who wants to learn more about welcoming pregnant students into your class and providing them with a great class experience, this workshop is for you. So right off the bat, I identify who this workshop is for and what they're going to learn. So you want to welcome pregnant students into your class and you would provide them with a great class experience. This implies that right now, people maybe don't let pregnant people come to their class, so they're uncomfortable with it. Or they feel like when those people come to their class, they're not really having the best experience they could have. So This workshop will focus on the individual needs of pregnant students in yoga classes and help teachers feel prepared to adapt their teaching for them. That's a little unclear. I should maybe say for those students, whatever. Led by Lauren Mason, yoga therapist and prenatal yoga teacher, who has been supporting pregnancy students in their practice and teaching continuing education for over 10 years. This workshop is a practical and simple way to expand your skill set and be more inclusive to students in your classes. That's a really long sentence. It doesn't matter very much when you're reading it silently. Tells you all about me, tells me why you should learn from me, what my credentials are, and it also tells you like what it's about. Practical and simple way to expand your skill set and be more inclusive. So again, this is already starting to evoke for people that they can create an inclusive class experience that they're not already offering. So right off the bat, if you already know how to teach pregnant students and you already feel like you're welcoming them into your class, this workshop isn't for you. Fine, you can move on. I don't want you to come. What I want is people who want to create this experience and don't know how to yet. You'll learn the physiology of pregnancy and the unique needs of these students and how to help them modify their practice to stay healthy and safe in regular classes. So there's a lot of important information in this sentence. First of all, I'm teaching you how to adapt your class. I'm not teaching you how to teach prenatal class. This is a 3-hour workshop. If you want to be a prenatal teacher, you have to take an 85-hour training, at least. So help them modify to stay healthy and safe in regular classes, but also I'm going to teach you the basic physiology of pregnancy. So I'm teaching you why they need to modify, not just how to do it. And then nice little conclusion, by offering a few simple modifications and adapting your language to be inclusive of these students, you can help them feel more empowered, help them feel empowered and supported throughout their pregnancy journey. So this is really for people who have pregnant students coming to their regular classes. And this happens all the time. In our community, we have very little prenatal yoga. So it's kind of hard to find it. And it's in one particular part of town very often. So people have to drive a long way to get to it. So people might go to those prenatal classes once or twice a month, but they might continue going to their regular yoga classes. So there are a lot of students who are already students and then they become pregnant and they want to continue practicing with their teacher. And the reason I started offering this workshop is because there were so many teachers who were saying, I have pregnant students coming to my class and I don't know what to do because this wasn't offered in my 200-hour. So I could have said something like that, like if you didn't learn this in your 200-hour, blah, blah, blah. But again, that feels like that bashing where like, that just feels negative. I don't want to focus on the negative. I want to focus on the positive. So this is just my preference and my language. You could put in there like, you know, if you can't do this, then you should come and learn how. But I mostly prefer to kind of paint this picture of all the wonderful things you will be able to do after this workshop. So this is one that I think is pretty good, pretty thorough. I know it's been effective because people have come to take this workshop a lot. Oh yeah, I'll put at the end just the basics, and I might even put this in a separate paragraph in a regular description. This workshop is eligible for 3 hours of CEUs, and I might also put in there like the time and the date and the location and all of that stuff. This is especially relevant in like a prenatal in a Facebook event where I want to put the entire description because sometimes people have to like search for the timing and the cost and all that stuff. I like to just put it all right there in the description. This is also true for like a Instagram caption or something like that. So you might have slightly different descriptions based on your placement and slightly different formatting for it. All right. This next one is a draft. This is a very basic description that I think we need to expand upon. So join Lauren Mason, yoga therapist and lead teacher trainer, for a workshop where you will learn skills that will help you bring your students into a deeper, more restful state of relaxation in your classes. Whether you want to improve and enhance Shavasana, or if you want to design full classes based on relaxation, this workshop will teach you the tools you need. So pretty basic, gets the idea across, but it's also minimal and not very evocative. So let's work on it. Okay, sorry, I should have paused the recording. One of the first things I wanted to show you is what ChatGPT came out with. So I took this basic description and I just said, I talk really politely to this thing, even though I know it's not a person. Please help me rewrite and expand this yoga workshop description. And then I pasted it in. And this is what it came up with, really long. So first of all, I'm going to definitely like pare this down because it's a long description for a short workshop. And then I want to just kind of look at what it came up with. So embark on an enriching journey. It always uses very expansive language like this. It's not, you always have to like adjust the tone. Dive into a transformative experience. That is a little lofty for what I'm trying to offer. This is not like a whole like transformation thing. This is like learn how to do something nice. But I do like this phrase, like you'll acquire invaluable techniques. Profound states of relaxation within your yoga classes. Like that's kind of nice. Maybe a little too lofty. Profound is a big word, but this is kind of the good idea. This is also really nice. Whether you, again, aspire, the word that they use is a little, but like maybe whether you want to refine the art of Shavasana or craft an entire class centered around relaxation, Lauren's expertise will equip you with a comprehensive toolkit. I like that. That's a nice sentence. I'll probably keep that. Practical insight and hands-on instruction. Hands-on is weird to use there. Again, I might use like, you know, face-to-face. Repertoire of techniques, breathing exercises, and methodologies aimed at fostering a more profound sense of calm and tranquility. So this is good because one of the things, let's see, I didn't put in there like the actual techniques you're going to learn. So this is one thing that is nice that expanded on is like you're going to learn this and this and this. I'm not sure I would actually teach all those things in that workshop. I'd have to think about it. Lauren will illuminate the path toward refining your teaching skills, allowing you to seamlessly integrate relaxation practices into your classes. That sounds kind of nice. But again, a little lofty. Explore how to structure sequences, employ mindfulness. So this really, these like when they do these descriptions, they're like really repetitive. What I would probably do is meld these two paragraphs because again, it's coming up with things that like I maybe won't be doing. Am I going to be using like props to effectively, like, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I might talk a little bit about how to set up a nice Shavasana, but that's not like a really important part of the workshop. So really, I would recommend this for giving you some ideas on how to kind of expand a description. But I would never like copy and paste straight from here. Okay. not going to spend time writing out like the full description. I just want to kind of give you the basics. I want to spend more time on this student example. So with this, what I would do is expand and make sure that I am talking about who I am and my expertise, exactly the techniques we're going to learn, because I want to make sure that I'm appealing to people. This is one of those topics where it's like, I know how to get my students to relax. I just put them in Shavasana. So I need to make sure that I'm putting some information in there around like a profound relaxation experience, a deep relaxation experience, a full relaxation experience, impactful. That kind of language is what I would include to, again, kind of imply that what the teacher is doing now is okay. It's just not as good as it could be. So I like the idea of like, you know, expanding on knowledge, building on knowledge. And I did really like that line that they put in there, because that is what I teach in the workshop, is like, whether you just want to like learn how to do a really good Shavasana, or whether you want to craft your entire experience around deep relaxation, we're going to cover both of those things in this workshop. But now I want to look at this beginner example. And the thing here that is lacking is that this is a student workshop description. So what this teacher is going to be offering is, oh my gosh, sorry, this is irritating me. I'm going to remove some of these graphics and things because I'm not able to get into this text box like I want to. So what this teacher is trying to evoke, or what they're sharing here, is the student workshop. So what the plan is that this teacher is going to teach a workshop for beginner yoga students that teachers will attend, and then they'll stay and have their own workshop where they're learning how to lead a workshop like this, or they're learning how to use these techniques in their class. So what I'm actually going to sort of do here is write a description from scratch. So I'm not really, here, let's say that this is the student version. And this is going to be the teacher version. So what are some key things I want to pull out of here? Let's just read this. First of all, like, I love the tone of this. This is so perfect for being casual for students, for getting them to get over some of the fears that they might have about yoga. It's lovely. So this workshop is suitable for the absolute beginner. Come as you are. No competition, no judgment. Let's break down some of the basic yoga poses together to increase confidence as you step onto your yoga mat. We welcome dialogue throughout the workshop, so feel free to ask as many questions as necessary. We will spend, sorry, I typed this really quickly. We will spend plenty of time helping you learn how to align your body in the poses so you can obtain the maximum benefit while avoiding injury. Yoga is truly for every body. Let us show you how you customize yoga for your body so you can begin experiencing all the amazing benefits yoga has to offer. All the amazing benefits of yoga you deserve. Love it. I was thinking ahead of my mouth just now. So some of the things that are addressed here are beginner student insecurities, like not fitting in, not knowing what to do, feeling like their body is wrong, being afraid to ask questions. All of these needs and fears are addressed in this. And also, like, it is just the tone is inviting. It's casual. This is so like very in line with this teacher and with this studio. It is like wonderful. And again, this description has been used before for yoga students to get them to their first beginner yoga workshop. This has been hugely effective in the past. So what we're trying to do is build on this and create a teacher workshop that helps you to do all of this. So I'm just keeping these notes down here to help us, because what we want to convey with this description is that you as a teacher will be able to address all the needs of beginner students. These things, right? You will have the language and skills you need to help beginners feel completely comfortable one of the things I might mention is that teaching beginners teaching beginner yoga students requires a unique skill set and a mindful approach. You need so I'm kind of a little bit like educating why people need to take this workshop, because some people might not realize that they need different skills. So we might even start with some questions like, are you having more and more beginners in your yoga classes? This is very much a draft. I'm just like writing some ideas that come to mind. Are you feeling like are you having more and more beginners in your yoga classes? Do you feel like you need more to be able to support these students as they begin their yoga journey? Teaching beginner yoga students requires a unique skill set and a mindful approach. We need to help newbies feel at ease and willing to enter into conversation with us. You as a teacher, so let me write something about like this workshop is perfect for yoga teachers who want to offer specialized support for beginners. You as a teacher will be able to address, in this workshop, we're going to say you will learn to address the needs of beginner students, maybe like the unique needs. You will have the language and skills you need after this workshop. And then we're going to write something a little bit like, begin this in-depth workshop experience. By attending beginner yoga workshop led by, I'm not going to name you here just so that you can maybe use this anonymously later. I like to use years. Sometimes you can use like since 2013 or whatever, but then people have to do math and just write how many years. And if you don't want to do years, you can just say like a successful guide of yoga students. Begin the sixth during the student workshop, you'll observe how this teacher effectively guides and encourages beginners. Then a teachers only follow-up workshop. You'll learn how to create your own beginner-friendly classes and workshops. So, this is just a draft. I think we can refine this quite a bit, but I think that the structure is really nice. So we need something that is an eye-catching, that like, this is why you need this. What this word, I'm telling you what you're lacking, or I'm asking you, like, do you feel like you need more? I'm gonna offer it to you. And then you say, this is perfect for teachers who want to offer specialized support for beginners. On the one hand, you might be like, dude, that should be everybody. It probably should be. But really, a beginner teacher is a unique, wonderful kind of teacher. And actually, the teacher who is offering this workshop, like, she is so well suited for beginner yoga students because she is welcoming. She is down to earth. She is honest. She is authentic. And she teaches yoga that's really accessible. She is exactly who she is. She teaches exactly what is useful for beginners to know. And she explains it in a way that is really accessible. So you just want to hang out with her. You just want to hang out with her in class, and you just want to learn stuff from her, and there's like no pressure. And that comes across in like every interaction that you have with her. But she's also really confident, and she's not shallow. So that is one thing that can happen if you only teach beginners. You might have this like, well, I only teach like the basic stuff, but no, like this teacher has a really good understanding of like, I am setting a foundation. And she's also good about this in business. So something that I didn't list in here that I want to expand on, like I put in here, successfully guiding and retaining beginner yoga students. What I really want to convey somewhere in this description is that this teacher not only helps people to feel safe in their first yoga class, but this teacher is able to convey that this is the beginning of something amazing. And you need to keep coming back to get all the amazing benefits of yoga you deserve. Like, this is just so effective. I know I'm gushing a little bit, but like, this is so good. And the reason that this is so good is because I like can hear this teacher saying this, and I know that they are going to deliver that. And they're not only going to help people feel comfortable and teach them what they need to know, they're going to get that student excited about coming back. And this is something that I think that this teacher needs to make sure that they're sharing in the teacher version of the workshop. They need to convey to people that not only are they a good teacher in like the moment and like people have a good class, but that they are able to get people coming back. So skills for client retention, like, and start of the journey. I think that these are things I haven't quite fit into this description yet that need to get in there at some point. I'm not gonna write it completely because this really is a process. I hope that you're kind of seeing this through me kind of writing this right here in front of you, is that you kind of have to get some thoughts on paper and maybe talk about it a little bit and put some things in and take some things out and keep thinking about like, what do I have to offer? What is most important? What is going to get people in? And I'm thinking as I'm writing this that, and what I know about this teacher is that, like, I think I'm really good at teaching beginners. I don't think I'm as excellent as this teacher is at keeping those students coming back to class. And one of the benefits of this is that this teacher is the studio manager. I did think that I was pretty good at this whenever I was a studio manager myself, because I just knew all the teachers at the studio. I think that this is a really effective thing for studio owners or studio managers to teach themselves. So we might do some gearing of this towards the leaders within a studio. Like, this is really great for people to come and, you know, it's not just about supporting beginners, which is really important, but it's about like, how can you help beginners stay and continue to get what they need on a long-term journey? So that's where my ideas are going now. I'm hoping that this student can take this and run with it and create a really nice description. I will copy and paste and send this to you, by the way. But I also hope that those of you who are watching will kind of see what a process this is, and maybe take this description and make it your own. So I kind of have a little bit of a formula here, which is grab attention, bring attention to the need and how it's going to be fulfilled. Talk about the why, talk about the who, and talk about the what, and then in some way wrap it up to be really meaningful on multiple levels. So like, how is this going to be impactful? And in some ways, I also like to finish up with like the really practical things that you're going to take away from it. So you might wrap up the end of the description with that. Right. So in the conclusion of this, I definitely want you to send me your basic description and start working through that course workbook there, to expand on your description, to think about how you're going to be marketing, and then we're going to work one-on-one together. So if you're taking this course, for the culmination of creating your own workshop and marketing it, we're going to work together. I'm going to help you know for your market and your ideal students how we kind of write this together. But please start working and thinking about all these different angles. So thinking about how you're going to get attention, how you're going to grab attention in the beginning, how you're going to address a need that your ideal student has, and then exactly what you're going to offer and how that's going to be impactful and helpful to them. So start on your description, start maybe on your visual marketing a little bit, and then you'll meet with me and we'll kind of expand and refine it together. And then also make sure that you're remembering, if you've forgotten now already, that you're doing that ethical inquiry, that self-inquiry on one of those kind of ethical gray area scenarios. Choose one that's interesting to you, and we'll also kind of talk about that. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, please be sure to send them my way, and I will talk with you again soon. Thanks.